All right, go ahead and introduce yourself.
Hello, Eric. I'm Rob Seolas with Petra Coach, and I've been very curious, new listener to your podcast and what you have to say. So I'm happy to be here.
Awesome, man. Where in the world does this story that you're going to tell us begin?
Oh, on a beach in the Dominican Republic. That's
Okay.
where
What year was it? Set the stage for me.
it says 2023,
Okay.
and I think it's going to be interesting for people who are they understand that there's often business crossroads, entrepreneurial crossroads. Like I've built and scaled 3 companies. And there always becomes a question of where you are in your life. And that was kind of where I was in that moment. I was very curious to try to figure out the next stage of my life. I'm a father of 5, a lucky one, and my youngest is basically out of the house. So it kind of what's next for me? I could go anywhere in the world and work anywhere in the world. And what in the world would I want to go do? And so the moment was where I wasn't happy with a lot of things that happened in 2023. I actually posted about this. I hated 2023. I really did. I liked 2024 and I'm in love with 2025. And it all stems from just connecting with myself and trying to find myself in new ways. And what that caused is just a series of change in my life to lead me to today.
I also did not like 2023. We sued a hospital and lost in 2023. We sued IHC, and it was a nightmare year for us. Like trial literally in Provo, Utah, like going through that whole rigmarole. So why was 2023 so abysmal for you?
Well, a couple reasons. I'd mainly kind of allowed myself to get into a stage of life where I was just kind of coasting in a lot of ways, right? I realized I wasn't getting the most out of myself, and I wasn't therefore finding myself in situations and in relationships and things that didn't bring out my best. And I knew I needed to change myself first before I really decided what I wanted to do with my career. And I've had the luxury to be able to build enough runway to do that for a small period of time and look at all of my different options. And I kept I just really tried to connect with what I feel like I do best and what I might be able to really, I guess the best way to phrase it is how can I really help people? I realize that one of my favorite things to do is to go out and help people. So as an entrepreneur, one of the reasons I like so much of what happens inside of a small company is the ability to get in and dig into a problem and try to solve it. And that rarely happens at big companies, Elon being the very notable exception and probably the trailblazer in a new way for CEOs to think about problem solving. But in the mindset I was in, I really like digging in and like, okay, let's figure this out. And so I needed to do that about myself before I could go focus externally on how I could go help people the most. And I think that's a place where a lot of us get to in later stages of their career when you've done something for a really long time. And if you're looking to do something different or want to do something different, you're trying to understand what you might be really good at. I've been lucky enough to have friends who are from doctors to attorneys, and not all of them really like their careers. A lot of them can't wait to get out of them. And that's true is when you're in the business field, that's kind of true as well. You kind of maybe get tired of certain roles, but there's always like a different company, right? You can always go work in a very different company and go work in a different country. And it's much harder to do that in certain fields. And having that luxury allowed me to just feel like I could do anything in my life, but I don't know what I want to do because I don't know what I really feel like I can be great at. And I think that's probably um, where this story really starts to pick up is, walking along that beach, trying to really understand what it was that made me happy and what it was that I got the most joy out of when I work and when I have a career. And I've been lucky enough to have some pretty good accomplishments along the way, but those were not the things that I sought at all anymore. What I sought is to have a meaningful difference in the nature, shape, direction, and trajectory of a company. And that's why I transitioned over into executive team coaching with Petra.
Mm. We talk about self-discovery quite a bit. I remember so we left the Mormon church in 2019. And it wasn't for like any like historical reasons or anything like that. And I wasn't bitter. Here I am, a white male, right? So the church really worked for me. It was a good experience. But I found myself, I missed a lot of things about it. And I had to like rebuild from scratch. I had to find myself again. And one of those activities that I did was a value like consolidation exercise. I was like, look, I want 5 phrases that will help me make decisions and that will help me like navigate my life and determine how I'm going to live. And so I literally just like took a grid of every value that I could find. I went to ChatGPT into this exercise, right? And it was like integrity and honesty. Well, I can combine those. There's like a hierarchy there. So I'm going to stick with integrity. And then it's like integrity and courage. I'm like, okay, I'm going to stick with integrity, right? So I kept like scratching off values in my list until I ended up with my core 5, which are wisdom, presence, integrity, gratitude, and self mastery. And that took me probably 3 months to like really dive in and find that part of me. So that's the exercise that I took. I'm curious, you started the process of self-discovery. You have been a part of companies, so you have all these matrices and different like frameworks that you can follow to get work done and to optimize processes. My first question is, what did you start in your process of self-discovery? And did you take any of those things that you had learned in your business career and apply them to your own life in order to find more clarity on, a more personal and purpose-driven level?
Sure. It's an interesting story for you. I share that same experience. Being somebody who was in the faith and active in the faith for a very long time and raised my children there for a number of years before, transitioning out of that faith. And, I think when you do something like that, when you leave a very structured system, I think our brains kind of crave that structure. And you found it in a framework that kind of helped you. I found it myself in different ways over time. I think frameworks help people, certainly certain type of brain types. But for me, the framework was just the tool to get to a deeper place. The ultimate fuel in that tool for me was I spent a lot of time with really close friends. I shortened my friend circle, if you will. I focused more time on my children, even though they were more grown, and trying to develop a new relationship with them because, as you know, you're a father. Your relationship with 2-year-olds different than when they're 8, and that's different when they're 12, and that's different when they're 20, and that's different now when they're almost 30. So there's a constant sense of change in those relationships, and I think to like for me, I wanted to reinvest some time in there. I was a CEO of a company that made like the Deloitte list and Inc. list and fastest growing companies in Utah multiple years in a row, a VC backed startup. There's a pace to that and there's a commitment to that. And it comes at often the expense of your family. And that was certainly partially my case because you just can't be 2 places at once. It wasn't for lack of heart or mind. I think I felt like I never had that erode, but the time I could spend with my children when you have 5 did erode. So when I was walking on the beach, I realized that one of the things I've really enjoyed is just spending time with my kids in new, completely different ways than the activities that they want to do and how they want to spend time. That was one, because I think there has to be deeper motivations and drivers to get to your answers. Like, you went through a process, it sounds like, with frameworks and trying to kind of reduce and condense things down. And I basically did the same. But I also knew I needed to open my mind and think about things differently. So one part of that journey that's been really important, that I'll share, especially to the nature of your audience, was psychedelics. And I want everybody who just heard me say that, stop and just catch your reaction right now. If your reaction was painful, if your reaction was scared, if it was something emotional, my answer to you is maybe you want to just take a deeper look at psychedelics because I think we're just starting to understand the power and nature of them, the ability for the human brain to become more idle in the way that we view our ego, and how we are able to now see in process from trauma to experiences to get to a better place. And I think they're going to be one of the things that save mental health down the future. But in that moment, this was a moment for me where even though there was kind of a lighter dose, it was still something where I just realized I know really what makes me happy. And I know how helping people and problem solving and connecting and trying to bring out the best in people has always been something I've really liked and maybe at moments been pretty good at. I think as a CEO, when you hire and go through and you lead a company for a number of years, that kind of becomes a skill. Some people have it innately, some people work at it, and people respond to that. And so that kind of started to make me understand, okay, this is where really what I wanted to, really what I want to do and where I want to spend time.
Was it psilocybin?
Yes, it was.
An amazing gift to the world. Um, I church in like September of 2019. I did, or July of 2019, and then I did ayahuasca in October of 2019. And so like real quick, I went and I shook my snow globe really hard, right? And that reference, a lot of people don't know, right? Like when you can think of your thoughts like sleds down a hill. And over time, if you keep putting your sled down, it's going to create these iced grooves, right? So every time that you think a certain way, right? Every time that you try to think, even in a divergent way, the grooves from the ice from the sled going down that hill over and over, you're going to kind of go into the same paths. So it's real hard to change the way that those neurons fire in your brain. And when you bring an element of psychedelics into it, you shake the snow globe, so to speak, right? You shake all the snow up and it's able to fall back down on the mountain. And what ends up happening is you're in the experience, the feelings that you have are almost all love. Like it just, like I think about my kids all the time. I end up crying during like even minor psilocybin sessions. And it sounds like were you on the beach on a mushroom dose? Is that where it was taking place? Oh man, how
Yeah.
beautiful.
Well,
Um,
it was incredible. It was sunset, and it felt like I was in a sunset for a week. And
mm,
one of the beautiful things about that experience for me and others who have had more transcendent experiences, you do have this sense of like time slows down, and which is a different question amongst others who study that. But in that moment, I felt like I had an entire week to figure out my life and go through a bunch of things. And that was just incredible. I think the crazy thing about that is it wasn't the most powerful experience on the Dominican. The most powerful experience was 3 days later when I did it again on top of a volcano. And I that is the moment where, I wish everybody could experience the feeling of connection to yourself, love and appreciation, gratitude. The emotions that I think drive the best of human behavior is often what people experience in psychedelic experiences and trips. And for me, it was for sure the way I felt it the second time. It was deeply powerful, deeply moving. And I've not been the same since that moment. And I think I walked away from that moment realizing and kind of loving myself for the first time in a very long time. I have a little bit of ADD, and it's not too bad compared to others, but it's there. And a lot of people who are kind of in like high pressure roles or have ADD, something else, they often have very harsh voices to themselves. And I think that's where I learned that the kindest voice that I need to have for myself needs to be me and not somebody else. And I think that has been one of the unlocks of my life is realizing that if I'm not nice to myself, if I'm not kind to myself, why would I expect anybody else to be? And living that way somehow seems to translate to other people. People are so nice to me right now. Like I make every upgrade. I go in hotels and they come out and say, "Hey, we found a nicer room for you." Like everybody's so nice to me right now. And I think part of it is because I'm nice to myself. And I know that sounds maybe almost silly and confusing to others, but I'll take it because
yeah,
the way it allows me to really enjoy my life at a new level is tremendous.
love that. I mean, me and my wife teach jujitsu, and when people are brand new at the sport, and I think this goes across any especially any martial art, but any sport, is say something to the effect of like, I suck at arm bars. Like, oh, I'm so bad at triangles. Like, oh, whatever. And we literally have to stop and tell them, no, your brain can hear you. And like attracts like, right? So if you just got to be kind to yourself. And there's a book out there by Jack Canfield. He talks about success principles, right? One of them is to turn your inner critic into your inner coach. And so I'm curious if you're willing to share with me, what were some of the negative things that you used to say to yourself, and what did you replace those things with? How did you turn your inner critic into your inner coach?
Oh, goodness. Where do we start on that one? For time, I'm going to say that I've said the worst things anybody has ever said to me. Nobody can ever beat that.
Yeah, reigning champ.
Yeah, reigning champ, undefeated, always knows exactly how to needle, right? And it's a difficult thing. Was lucky and very blessed. I had a father who I lost early in my life, in my 20s, who was big on like positive thinking. And so he helped me say affirmations when I was little. And I can still repeat them. I'm positive, I'm smart, I'm happy, I'm enthusiastic, I'm trustworthy, I'm dependable, I'm a person others like to be around. I always look good at people. And then I go on, right? And so I remember all of those. And I've taught my children and did that with my kids until they were 8. And I went back to that. I looked in the mirror, as silly as this sounds, and would say these things to myself. And I was like, oh, that's what it feels like to say nice things about yourself rather than harsh things. And that was a big part of it for me, is to go back to that. And then from there, it's evolved. And I made a post about this because I hope it really helps others. It's on X at Seolas. I came up with something called fame because it was important to me to start to have a framework or a mantra or something else to kind of say. And as I was working through these, I want to be famous, but it's not the fame that perhaps others seek. I want to be famous to myself because I'm the only person whose opinion I really deeply 100% care about. And so it stands for being financially fit, athletically fit, mentally fit, and emotionally fit. And that's fame. And if I am in the top, 1% of all of those, then I'm going to be famous in all the ways that I really want in my life and really happy and joyous in my life. And so that's kind of what I've come back to. And I focus every day on some part of that. So on physical fitness, financial fitness, mental, fitness, and emotional fitness. And it kind of goes in that order. I think it's hard to be mentally and emotionally really fit if you're not financially fit at all.
Stressed about money.
You're living in debt. So it kind of is same with being athletically fit. It's hard to be athletically fit if you're not at least financially fit to be able to carve out time to do that. And it builds, that idea kind of came to me, and that's been for the last year and a half a really guiding principle for me of how I think about how do I want to get the things that I want out of my life? How do I be really happy and joyous and help people? Then I just need to be famous by working on myself and getting that right first.
Rob, where can everyone find you?
Rob at Petra Coach is where you can find me on the coaching side. X for anything else around consulting. But, it's so many amazing places these days to find advice, to find mentorship, to find somebody better to talk to become the best version of yourself, whether it's in work, entrepreneurship, scaling a business, whatever that might be. And I just hope all of your listeners just feel comfortable to reach out to somebody, me or somebody else that they look up to, and do that because it makes a difference in your life. And it's super valuable.
Rob, thank you so much for coming on the show.
Thanks, Eric.
This has been the Pulse Ox podcast. Please, if you found this episode valuable, give us a like on Spotify and share it with a friend.